The emergency alarm echoed through the grand halls of the Galactic Council station. Council members from across the galaxy hurried to their seats, their various forms of communication devices buzzing with urgent messages. Something was wrong. In the Outer Rim territories, specifically in a small yellow star system that most species barely noticed. High Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire called the session to order. His blue skin shimmered under the station's artificial lights as he addressed the assembly. Fellow council members, we face an unprecedented situation. The monitoring station assigned to System Sol 3 has gone silent. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Sol 3 was home to a primitive species called humans. They had barely discovered electricity a few of their short years ago. The council had been watching them for thousands of years, waiting for them to develop enough to join galactic society. They were nothing special, just another young species learning to walk among the stars. Perhaps their monitoring equipment failed, suggested Ambassador Krill from the Mantis Collective. Her insect-like head tilted as she clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. These Outer Rim stations often have technical problems. That was our first thought, Vextar replied, his voice heavy with concern. However, we sent 3 separate investigation teams to the Sol system. None have returned. More troubling, we can no longer detect Sol 3 on our long-range scanners. The chamber erupted in surprised chatter. Planets did not simply disappear. Even if a world was destroyed, there would be debris, radiation signatures, something to mark. Its passing. For a planet to vanish completely from all detection methods was impossible according to known physics. We must assume the worst, declared General Thorn of the warrior caste of Rigel. His massive frame dominated his section of the chamber as he stood. Perhaps the humans discovered atomic weapons and destroyed themselves. It would not be the first time a young species ended their own existence. The readings do not support that theory, interrupted Science Director Yilan from the crystal mines of Andromeda. Her crystalline form pulsed with soft light as she accessed her data networks. A nuclear holocaust would leave clear signatures. This is something else entirely. Vextar raised his hand for silence. Which is why I have authorized Operation Deep Scan. Admiral Koreth will lead our most advanced exploration fleet to investigate Sol 3 directly. If there are survivors, we will help them. If there are threats, we will deal with them. 3 days later, Admiral Koreth's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. The Vargan Admiral had seen many strange things in his long career, but nothing had prepared him for what awaited them. Admiral, his sensor officer called out, her voice trembling with confusion. Sol 3 is still there, but it is completely different. On the main display, where Earth should have been, hung something that defied all logic. The planet was still in its proper orbit around the yellow star, but it no longer looked like the blue and green world they had been monitoring. Instead, it appeared to be a massive construct of metal and energy, bristling with structures that seemed to bend space around them. Those readings cannot be correct, Koreth growled, his reptilian features twisting in disbelief. Run a full spectrum. Analysis. Sir, the analysis confirms it. That construct is approximately the same mass as the original planet, but it appears to be entirely artificial. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Koreth studied the display with growing unease. The humans were supposed to be primitive. Their most advanced weapons were crude chemical explosives. They had not even achieved reliable spaceflight beyond their own moon, yet somehow they had transformed their entire world into something that registered as a threat. On his ship's tactical systems, open communication channels, he ordered. All frequencies. Before his communications officer could comply, every screen and speaker on the bridge activated simultaneously. A human face appeared, female, with dark skin and calm brown eyes. She wore what appeared to be a military uniform, though its design was unfamiliar. "Greetings, Admiral Koreth of the Vargan Star Navy," the human said in perfect galactic standard. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force. We have been expecting you. The bridge fell silent. Korath felt his blood run cold. The humans not only knew he was coming, but they knew his name and species. More impossibly, they were communicating in Galactic Standard, a language that should have been completely unknown to them. "How do you know our language?" Korath demanded. "How do you know who I am?" Admiral Chen smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "We know many things, Admiral. We know about the Galactic Council. We know about the monitoring stations you have placed around our world. We know about the trade routes that pass through our system. We know about the wars you fight in, the name of peace, and the species you have enslaved in the name of order." "Impossible," Korath breathed. "Your species has no space travel capability. You have no advanced technology." "What we have and what we show are very different things," Chen replied. "For 50,000 of your standard years, we have been watching, learning, preparing. The time for hiding is over." Suddenly, the human fleet appeared. Not emerged from behind planets or uncloaked, simply appeared, as if they had been invisible to all sensors until that moment. Hundreds of ships surrounded Korath's fleet, each one radiating energy signatures that made his tactical officers' readings go wild. "You have two choices, Admiral," Chen continued, her voice remaining perfectly calm. "You can return to the Galactic Council and deliver our message, or you can try to fight us. I recommend the former." Korath looked at his tactical display in growing horror. His ship's weapons could not lock onto the human vessels. Their shields registered the human ships as both there and not there, solid matter and empty space. Every system designed to analyze and counter enemy threats was failing simultaneously. "What is your message?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tell the Council that the children have grown up," Chen said. "Tell them that we know what they have done to the galaxy. Tell them that we are coming to set things right. The age of the Council's rule is ending. The age of freedom is about to begin." The communication ended abruptly. Korath stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the impossible fleet that surrounded them. His sensors could not count the human ships accurately. The numbers kept changing, as if reality itself was uncertain about how many vessels were present. "Admiral," his navigation officer called out urgently, "we are receiving a data package. It contains complete star charts for our return journey and, sir, it includes detailed information about our ship's capabilities and crew manifest." Korath felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had just demonstrated that they knew everything about his fleet while revealing nothing about themselves. They had shown technological capabilities that surpassed anything in the Council's arsenal. Most terrifying of all, they had done it all while maintaining perfect calm and control. "Set course for Council Station," he ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." As his fleet limped away from the Sol system, Korath could not shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. The humans were not the primitive species the Council had been monitoring. They were something else entirely, something that had been planning and preparing while the rest of the galaxy remained oblivious. Behind them, Earth hung in space like a warning and a promise, its transformed surface gleaming with the light of technologies that should not exist. The secret was out, and nothing would ever be the same. 50,000 years ago, the night sky above Africa changed forever. Dr. Amara Okafor stood in the underground chamber deep beneath the Sahara Desert, studying the ancient recordings that told the true story of human history. The massive screens showed cave paintings that looked primitive to untrained eyes, but Amara knew better. Hidden within the crude drawings were mathematical formulas and star charts that would not be officially discovered for millennia. "Computer, show me the Lascaux sequence," she commanded. The display shifted to show paintings from a French cave. To most humans, they appeared to be simple drawings of animals and hunters, but when viewed through quantum filters, they revealed complex blueprints for faster-than-light communication devices. The ancient humans had been far more advanced than anyone suspected. It had started with first contact. Not the contact the Galactic Council believed would happen someday, but the real first contact that occurred when humanity was still learning to make fire. A Galactic Council survey ship had crashed in what would later be called Ethiopia. The crew had died, but their technology had survived. The early humans who found the wreckage were not the primitive beings the Council believed them to be. They were already intelligent, already curious, already capable of learning. They studied the alien technology, reverse-engineered it, and made a decision that would shape the next 50,000 years of human development. They chose to hide. "Computer, access the Council archives," Amara said. The screen filled with stolen documents and communication logs spanning millennia. "Show me the monitoring reports for Earth." File after file appeared, each one describing humanity as a typical developing species. The reports detailed human progress through agriculture, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and beyond. Every milestone was carefully documented and analyzed by Council scientists who believed they were watching natural development. They had no idea that every step was carefully planned. The truth was that by the time humans were supposed to be discovering fire, they already had cities beneath the Earth's surface. Massive underground complexes stretched across continents, connected by transportation systems that moved people faster than sound. While surface humans appeared to struggle with basic tools, their underground cousins were already reaching for the stars. "Show me New Geneva," Amara commanded. The display changed to show a vast underground city beneath what the surface world knew as Switzerland. Towers of crystal and metal stretched up toward the surface, their tops carefully hidden behind holographic projections that made them appear to be solid rock. Millions of humans lived and worked in the city, their technology advancing at a rate that would have shocked the Council observers. The surface humans were not actors or puppets. They were volunteers who chose to live simpler lives to maintain the illusion. They knew about their underground cousins, and their cousins knew about them. When surface humans made discoveries, they were actually receiving carefully timed gifts from below. The invention of the wheel, the development of writing, the discovery of electricity, all of it was managed and controlled to maintain the appearance of natural progression. The Council's monitoring stations detected exactly what humanity wanted them to detect. "Computer, show me the Mars facility." The screen shifted to show a red landscape dotted with domed cities. Humans had been living on Mars for 30,000 years, long before they were supposed to have invented agriculture. The planet served as humanity's primary research and development center, hidden from Council sensors by technology that made it appear uninhabited. Dr. James Martinez had been born on Mars, in a city built inside an ancient volcano. He had never seen the surface of Earth until he was chosen for the Surface Contact Program. His job was to live among the surface humans and guide their natural development of space travel. The deception was necessary, he had written in his mission report. The Council's history is filled with examples of advanced species conquering or enslaving younger ones. By appearing primitive, we bought ourselves time to develop defenses that would ensure our survival. The Mars colonies had been working for thousands of years to understand Council technology. Every crashed ship, every lost probe, every piece of alien equipment that found its way to Earth was carefully studied and improved upon. Human scientists did not simply copy alien technology, they enhanced it, combining it with uniquely human innovations. The breakthrough had come 20,000 years ago when Dr. Sarah Kim, working in the Lunar Research Station, had discovered how to manipulate quantum consciousness. While the Council species used technology to enhance their minds, humans learned to use their minds to enhance technology. The result was a symbiosis between human intelligence and alien science that created capabilities neither could achieve alone. "Computer, show me the consciousness grid." The display revealed humanity's greatest secret, a network of interconnected minds that spanned the solar system. Every human, whether living on the surface or underground, was connected to the grid through quantum implants that were grown rather than built. The grid allowed for instantaneous communication across any distance and gave humanity a collective intelligence that no single species could match. When Admiral Chen spoke to Admiral Korath, she was not speaking as an individual. She was speaking as the voice of billions of connected human minds, each contributing their knowledge and expertise to the conversation. The calm confidence in her voice came from the certainty that she had access to all of human knowledge and experience. The grid had been watching the Council for millennia. It had infiltrated their communications networks, accessed their databases, and studied their military tactics. By the time humanity revealed itself, they knew more about each council species than those species knew about themselves. Computer, show me Operation Surface Integration. Files appeared detailing the careful process by which surface and underground humanity had been reunited. For thousands of years, the two groups had lived separate lives, but they had always remained connected through the grid. As the time for revelation approached, the barriers between surface and underground had gradually dissolved. Surface humans who showed exceptional ability were quietly recruited into underground programs. Underground. Humans took positions in surface governments and institutions. By the time the transformation began, human society was fully integrated and ready to act as one. The Council had been watching Earth for so long that they had stopped really seeing it. Their monitoring stations detected human radio signals, human aircraft, human satellites. They tracked human population growth and technological development. But they never noticed that human progress was too smooth, too predictable, too perfect. Real species development was chaotic and unpredictable. Wars disrupted progress. Natural disasters set civilizations back centuries. Political upheavals destroyed knowledge and delayed advancement. But human development had been remarkably steady, with each discovery building logically on the previous one. The Council should have realized that such perfect progress was impossible without outside guidance. But their arrogance blinded them to the truth. They saw what they expected to see. Another primitive species slowly climbing toward the stars. Computer, show me the fleet construction records. The display filled with blueprints and construction, logs for the human fleet that had appeared around Admiral Korath's ships. The vessels had been built in orbital shipyards hidden behind the moon, using materials mined from the asteroid belt by automated systems that the Council's sensors could not detect. Each ship was a masterpiece of hybrid technology, combining alien engineering with human innovation. They could phase in and out of normal space, making them effectively invisible to conventional sensors. Their weapons did not rely on brute force, but on manipulation of fundamental forces that could disable enemy ships without destroying them. The human fleet was not designed for conquest, but for liberation. Every ship carried technology that could free enslaved species and break the chains that bound them to their oppressors. The humans had spent 50,000 years preparing not just to protect themselves, but to bring freedom to the entire galaxy. As Dr. Okafor finished reviewing the historical records, she felt a mixture of pride and anticipation. The Great Deception was over. Humanity no longer needed to hide in the shadows and pretend to be less than they were. The time had come to step onto the galactic stage and show the universe what humans were truly capable of. The Council believed they were facing a newly emerged species that had somehow developed impossible technology overnight. They could not imagine that they were actually confronting a civilization that had been planning this moment for 50,000 years, guided by the combined wisdom of billions of connected minds and armed with weapons beyond their comprehension. The galaxy was about to learn that appearances could be very deceiving indeed. The Galactic Council emergency session had been in progress for 6 hours. High Chancellor Vextar watched as Admiral Korath finished his report, his reptilian features pale with exhaustion and fear. The chamber was silent, except for the quiet, hum of translation devices working overtime to process the shocked murmurs of hundreds of species. "Let me understand this correctly," Ambassador Krill said, her mandibles clicking nervously. "These humans not only knew we were coming, but they knew your name, your rank, and details about your ship that should have been classified?" "That is correct," Korath replied, his voice hoarse from hours of questioning. "They demonstrated technological capabilities that our scientists say are impossible. Their ships appeared and disappeared at will. Our weapons could not lock onto them. They made our entire fleet helpless without firing a single shot." "This is clearly some kind of illusion," declared General Thorne, though his usual confidence seemed forced. "No species develops such advanced technology without going through observable stages. Our monitoring stations would have detected any significant advancement." Science Director Yilan's crystalline form pulsed with agitated light patterns. "I have analyzed the sensor data from Admiral Korath's fleet. The energy signatures are real. These are not illusions or tricks. The humans have technology that operates on principles we do not understand." Chancellor Vextar stood, his blue skin darker than usual with stress. "The question before us is how to respond. Do we treat this as a threat to galactic security? Or do we attempt diplomatic contact?" "Diplomatic contact," Ambassador Krill said immediately. "If these humans wanted to destroy Admiral Korath's fleet, they clearly had the capability. Instead, they sent him back with a message that suggests they are open to communication. Or it suggests they are planning something larger," General Thorne countered. "Perhaps they wanted us to know about their capabilities as a form of psychological warfare. We should mobilize the combined fleet immediately." The debate continued for another hour before Chancellor Vextar made his decision. "We will send a diplomatic mission. However, it will be escorted by a battle group for protection. Ambassador Krill, you will lead the diplomatic effort. General Thorne, you will command the military escort." 3 days later, the largest diplomatic fleet in Council history approached the Sol system. 50 ships of various sizes and purposes formed an impressive display of galactic unity. At the center was the diplomatic vessel Harmony, its hull painted in the peaceful colors of the Council. Ambassador Krill stood on the bridge of the Harmony, reviewing her notes on human culture. The information was limited and apparently outdated, but it was all they had. According to their files, humans were tribal creatures who valued strength and territory. They were supposed to be impressed by displays of power and respond to authority. "Entering the Sol system now," announced the navigation officer. On the main display, Earth appeared exactly as it had when Admiral Korath's fleet arrived. The transformed planet hung in space like a mechanical moon, its surface covered with structures that hurt to look at directly. Energy readings spiked across all instruments as the human fleet materialized around them. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer reported, the screen filled with the same human face that had appeared to Admiral Korath. Admiral Sarah Chen looked exactly as she had before, calm and composed, despite facing a force 50 times, larger than the previous Council fleet. "Welcome back to the Sol system," Chen said in perfect galactic standard. "I am honored to meet you, Ambassador Krill of the Mantis Collective. Your reputation for fairness and wisdom precedes you." Krill felt a chill run down her chitinous spine. Chen knew who she was, just as she had known about Admiral Korath. The human's knowledge of galactic politics was clearly far more extensive than any primitive species should possess. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Krill replied, following standard diplomatic protocol. "The Galactic Council extends greetings to your species and hopes to establish peaceful relations." "Peaceful relations," Chen repeated, and for the first time, her expression showed emotion, a slight smile that did not reach her eyes. "That is interesting. Tell me, Ambassador, in your definition of peaceful relations, do you include the enslavement of the Corvani mining colonies?" The forced relocation of the Delian refugees, the systematic extermination of the Whistler species for their valuable neural fluid. The bridge of the harmony fell silent. Krill felt her diplomatic training abandon her as Chen listed events that were not supposed to be known outside the highest levels of council security. Some of the incidents mentioned were classified at levels that even Krill did not have access to. I am not familiar with those specific situations, Krill stammered. Of course you are not, Chen replied, her voice gentle but cutting. The council's structure ensures that each species sees only what they need to see. You genuinely believe you are part of a peaceful organization working for galactic harmony. The reality is somewhat different. The main display split, showing images that made Krill's stomach turn. Corvani workers in chains, laboring in mines under the supervision of council peacekeepers. Delian children separated from their parents and loaded onto transport ships. Whistler corpses being processed in industrial facilities, while council scientists monitored the extraction of their neural fluid. These images are fabricated, General Thorne's voice cut across the communication channel from his flagship. This is clearly an attempt to destabilize the council through propaganda. General Thorne of the warrior caste of Rigel, Chen said, turning her attention to him. Born in the fortress city of Caradun. Graduated top of your class from the Imperial War College, veteran of the Sigma Draconis pacification campaign, where you personally oversaw the orbital bombardment of 3 civilian cities. Thorne's face appeared on the screen, his features twisted with rage and fear. How do you know that? Those records are sealed. We know many things, General, Chen replied calmly. We know about the secret deals between the Council and the Slave, Lords of Vega. We know about the biological weapons testing on primitive worlds in the Outer Rim. We know about the deliberate suppression of faster-than-light technology among species deemed unworthy of advancement. The communication channel erupted as various ship commanders began demanding explanations from their superiors. The carefully maintained unity of the Council fleet began to fracture as species that had never heard these accusations before started asking uncomfortable questions. This is enough, Chancellor Vexitar's voice cut through the chaos. Human Admiral, what do you want from us? We want you to stop, Chen replied simply. Stop the slavery. Stop the genocide. Stop the lies. The galaxy deserves better than the corrupt system you have built. And if we refuse? Thorne demanded. Chen's smile returned, and this time it was cold as space. Then we will stop you ourselves. You and what army? Thorne scoffed. You have perhaps a few hundred ships. We have millions across the galaxy. Do we? Chen asked. Computer, show them the truth. The space around Earth suddenly filled with ships. Not hundreds, but thousands. Not thousands, but millions. The human fleet stretched across the solar system, each vessel radiating power signatures that made the Council ships look like toys. The display showed ship classifications and capabilities that exceeded anything in Council records. But the true shock came when the fleet commanders realized that many of the ships were not human at all. Mixed in among the human vessels were ships from dozens of species that the Council believed were loyal members. The Corvani Liberation Fleet, Chen announced, as a group of distinctive mining vessels moved into formation. The Free Delian Navy, the Whistler Resistance, and many others who have grown tired of Council oppression. Ambassador Krill stared at the display in horror. This is impossible. These species are Council members. They would never rebel. Would they not? Chen asked. When we revealed ourselves to the galaxy, we did not do so only to the Council. We also reached out to the oppressed, the enslaved, the forgotten. We offered them something the Council never has: genuine freedom and equality. General Thorne's tactical displays were going wild as his computers tried to count the enemy fleet. My scanners show over 3 million vessels, he reported, his voice barely controlled. Power levels exceed our capabilities by several orders of magnitude. This is not a negotiation, Chen continued. This is a declaration. The age of council, dominance is over. Species across the galaxy are declaring their independence from your corrupt system. You can choose to accept this peacefully, or you can fight a war you cannot win. What guarantee do we have that you will not simply replace the council with human dominance? Chancellor Vextar asked. Because we do not want to rule, Chen replied. We want to liberate. Every species will govern itself according to its own culture and values. We will provide protection for those who need it and technology for those who want it. But we will not impose our will on anyone. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the council fleet alone with impossible choices. Around them, the combined forces of humanity and their allies waited patiently for an answer. Ambassador. Krill looked at her fellow diplomats and saw her own fear reflected in their faces. They had come expecting to meet a primitive. Chancellor Vextar stood alone in his private chambers aboard the council flagship, staring out at the impossible sight before him. Millions of ships filled the space around Earth, representing species he had thought were loyal council members. The betrayal cut deeper than any military defeat could. His personal communicator chimed with an incoming message from the emergency council session. The holographic display showed the faces of the remaining council leadership, their expressions, ranging from fear to rage to desperate determination. The vote is complete, announced Vice Chancellor Marin of the Aquatic Dominion. 15 systems have declared independence from the council in the past 6 hours. 7 more are holding referendum votes. The humans have somehow coordinated a galaxy-wide rebellion. It is not rebellion, corrected Science Director Yilan, her crystalline form pulsing with distressed patterns. According to the intelligence reports coming in, these species have been planning this for decades. The humans merely provided them with the technology and coordination they needed to act simultaneously. General Thorne's image flickered as interference from the human ships disrupted communications. None of that matters now. The question is whether we fight or surrender. I refuse to bow to these upstart primitives and their collection of malcontents. General, Vextar said quietly, your tactical assessment, please. Thorne's expression grew grim. Our combined fleet strength in this system is approximately 50,000 vessels. The enemy shows over 3 million ships with energy signatures that exceed our best estimates. In addition, our weapons cannot achieve target lock on their primary vessels. Any engagement would result in our complete destruction. Then we withdraw and regroup, suggested Admiral Yorick of the Stellar Confederation. We can rally our remaining loyal systems and build a defensive line. With what? Yilan interjected. The humans have demonstrated the ability to appear anywhere without warning. Our communication networks are compromised. Our supply lines are under attack by our own former allies. We do not have the resources for a prolonged conflict. Vextar closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 10,000 years of galactic civilization pressing down on him. The Council had maintained order through strength and careful manipulation, but they had always assumed their power was unchallengeable. The idea that someone could unite the oppressed species against them had never seriously been considered. We fight, he decided. Even if we cannot win, we cannot allow this precedent to stand. Order must be maintained. The order went out across the Council fleet. Battle stations were manned, weapons were charged, and shields were raised. The largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled, prepared for war against an enemy they did not understand. Admiral Chen watched the Council preparations with sad resignation. The human collective consciousness had hoped for a peaceful transition, but they had prepared for this possibility. Through the quantum link that connected all human minds, she felt the presence of billions of her people, each contributing their expertise to the coming battle. Council fleet is powering weapons, reported her tactical officer, a young man whose consciousness was simultaneously monitoring 17 different ship systems across the human fleet. Signal all Allied forces to maintain defensive positions, Chen ordered. We will handle the Council fleet directly. The first shots came from General Thorne's flagship. Massive energy beams lanced out toward the human vessels, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a small moon. The beams struck the human ships and simply vanished, absorbed by defensive systems that converted destructive energy into useful. "Power! Return fire!" Chen commanded. "Non-lethal suppression patterns only!" The human response was unlike anything in the recorded history of galactic warfare. Instead of energy weapons or kinetic projectiles, the human ships released waves of coherent thought patterns that passed through the Council ships' shields as if they did not exist. On the bridge of Thorne's flagship, crew members suddenly stopped what they were doing. Their eyes grew distant as foreign thoughts filled their minds. They saw images of enslaved workers in Council-controlled mines. They felt the terror of refugees being loaded onto deportation ships. They experienced the pain of civilians caught in pacification campaigns. "What is happening to my crew?" Thorne demanded. But his own voice sounded uncertain as the human thought weapons reached him as well. For the first time in his military career, General Thorne saw his actions from the perspective of his victims. The orbital bombardment of Sigma, Draconis played out in his mind, but this time he felt the fear and desperation of the civilians below. He experienced their last moments as fire rained down from the sky. Across the Council fleet, the same scene was playing out on every ship. Crews that had followed orders without question were suddenly confronted with the true consequences of their actions. The carefully constructed justifications that had allowed them to participate in atrocities crumbled under the weight of genuine understanding. "Weapons systems offline," reported the tactical officer on Thorne's ship, his voice hollow with shock. "Crew members are refusing to follow firing orders." "This is psychological warfare," Thorne protested, but even as he spoke, he could feel his own certainty wavering. The images in his mind were too real, too detailed to be fabrications. "It has to be." Admiral Chen's voice filled the communication channels, calm and compassionate despite the ongoing battle. "We are not attacking your minds, General. We are simply sharing the truth that has been hidden from you. Your crews are seeing the reality of the system they have been defending." "Sir," Thorne's communications officer called out, "we are receiving surrender signals from 17 ships in our battle group. They are requesting permission to withdraw from the engagement." The pattern spread across the entire Council fleet. Ship after ship stopped fighting as their crews grappled with the knowledge of what they had been part of. Some vessels attempted to continue the battle, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the human ships, which seemed to exist in a state of quantum uncertainty that made them impossible to target effectively. Chancellor Vextar watched his mighty fleet fall apart without a single ship being destroyed. The humans had found a way to win without killing, to defeat their enemies by making them understand the truth of their actions. It was a form of warfare that the Council had no defense against. "All ships, cease fire," he ordered finally. "Request immediate communication with the human command." Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main screen of the Council flagship. Her expression was sympathetic but firm. "Chancellor Vextar, are you ready to discuss terms?" "Terms?" Vextar asked bitterly. "What terms can there be? You have demonstrated that our entire military force is useless against you. You could destroy us all if you chose to." "But we choose not to," Chen replied. "We told you from the beginning that we are not conquerors. We are liberators. Your crews have seen the truth of what the Council has become. Now the question is whether you are willing to accept that truth and work with us to build something better." Around the battlefield, the Allied fleet moved into new formations. Ships that had been enemies moments before were now working together, their crews communicating across species lines to coordinate relief efforts for the oppressed systems they had all helped to identify. "What happens to the Council leadership?" Vexitar asked. "That will be decided by the species you have wronged," Chen answered. "But we believe in justice, not revenge. Those who were following orders they believed to be right will be treated with compassion. Those who knowingly participated in atrocities will face appropriate consequences. General Thorne's image appeared alongside Chen's. His proud bearing was gone, replaced by a haunted expression of someone who had seen too much truth. Admiral Chen, I formally request to discuss the terms of our surrender. General, Chen said gently, there are no surrender terms. There is only a choice. You can continue to fight for a system that enslaves and oppresses, or you can help us build a galaxy where every species is free to determine its own destiny. The Great War that the Council had feared lasted less than 2 hours. No ships were destroyed. No lives were lost. But everything changed. The human strategy of forced enlightenment had shattered the psychological foundations that had allowed the Council's oppression to continue. As news of the Council fleet's defeat spread across, the galaxy, system after system, declared independence. The carefully maintained structure of galactic civilization collapsed not through destruction, but through awakening. Species that had accepted oppression for millennia suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the HMS Defiance, feeling the collective relief of the human consciousness as the immediate threat ended. But she knew this was only the beginning. Building a new galactic order based on freedom and equality would be far more difficult than destroying the old one. The easy part was over. Now the real work could begin. 6 months after the fall of the Galactic Council, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in what had once been the Grand Assembly Hall of the Council Station. The towering chamber had been redesigned to accommodate representatives from over 3,000 species, each delegation seated according to their biological needs rather than their political importance. The transformation had been remarkable. Where once a small group of powerful species had made decisions for the entire galaxy, now every sentient race had a voice in their own destiny. The old hierarchy based on military strength and economic dominance had been replaced by a democratic system that valued diversity and cooperation. The Corvani delegation has the floor, announced the session moderator, a human diplomat named Marcus Webb, whose consciousness was simultaneously monitoring translation protocols for hundreds of different languages. Kethvar, the newly elected representative of the freed Corvani miners, stood slowly. His people had been enslaved for so long that many had forgotten what freedom felt like. When he spoke, his voice carried the strength of a species reborn. The Corvani Republic formally requests assistance in rebuilding our homeworld. 3 centuries of strip mining by the Council have left our planet nearly uninhabitable. We ask for environmental restoration technology and the resources needed to heal our world. The request is noted and approved, Chen replied from her position as the temporary coordinator of the new Galactic Alliance. The Human Environmental Corps will begin deployment to the Corvani system within 48 hours. Full planetary restoration should be complete within 2 standard years. Similar requests had been pouring in from across the galaxy. The Council's legacy of exploitation had left hundreds of worlds damaged or destroyed. Entire species had been scattered from their homelands, their cultures nearly erased by forced assimilation programs. The work of undoing centuries of harm would take generations, but progress was being made. The Delian refugees had been reunited with their families and given ships to establish new colonies on worlds of their choosing. The surviving Whistlers had been provided with advanced medical technology to help their species recover from the systematic harvesting of their neural fluid. Former slave species were receiving education and technology to help them build independent civilizations. The Zephyrian Empire requests recognition of their new constitutional government, announced another delegate. Former Chancellor Vexitar rose from his seat in the section reserved for transitional governments. His blue skin had lost much of its luster since the fall of the Council, but his voice remained steady. The Zephyrian people have voted to establish a democratic republic. We renounce all claims of empire and ask only for the right to govern ourselves in peace. The transformation of the former council species had been one of the most surprising developments of the new order. Many had expected them to resist change or attempt to maintain their privileged positions. Instead, most had embraced the opportunity to build more just societies. Request approved, Chen said. The Zephyrian Republic is welcomed as a full member of the Galactic Alliance. General Thorn had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation of all the former council leaders. The proud warrior who had once commanded vast fleets now worked tirelessly to help rebuild the worlds he had helped destroy. He had requested assignment to the most damaged systems, using his military expertise to coordinate relief efforts and peacekeeping operations. Admiral Chen, he said, rising from his seat, I have a report on the Sigma Draconis restoration project. Proceed, General, Chen replied, using his old title out of respect for his efforts at redemption. The atmospheric processors are working ahead of schedule. The first cities should be habitable again within 6 months. The surviving population has agreed to establish a memorial at the impact sites to remember those who were lost. Thorn's voice carried the weight of genuine remorse. The human thought weapons had shown him the true cost of his actions, and he had dedicated the remainder of his life to making amends. It was a pattern repeated across the former council military as soldiers who had believed they were keeping. Peace learned the reality of their service. Not every transition had been smooth. Some systems had fallen into civil war as old grievances exploded into violence. Others had struggled with the sudden freedom to make their own decisions after millennia of being told what to do. The humans and their allies had intervened when requested, but they had maintained their promise not to impose their will on unwilling populations. The Rigel system situation requires attention, reported Ambassador Krill, who had become one of the new alliance's most effective diplomats. 3 separate factions are claiming legitimate government. Fighting has broken out in the outer colonies. Peacekeeping Fleet 7 is en route, Chen replied. They have orders to protect civilians and provide humanitarian aid, but not to choose sides in the political dispute. The Rigel people must decide their own government. It was a delicate balance that the humans maintained constantly. Their technology and military strength could easily have made them the new rulers of the galaxy, but they had kept their promise to act only as protectors and facilitators. When species requested help, they provided it freely. When species chose isolation, they respected that choice. The session continued for several more hours as representatives from across the galaxy shared their progress and concerns. Trade agreements were negotiated between former enemies. Cultural exchange programs were established to help species learn from each other. Scientific research was coordinated to address challenges that affected multiple worlds. As the formal session ended, Chen remained in the chamber to meet with individual delegates who had specific concerns. The work was exhausting, but it was also deeply satisfying. For the first time in galactic history, every species had genuine hope for a better future. Dr. Amara Okafor approached as the last of the delegates departed. The historian, who had helped reveal humanity's hidden past, now served as one of the architects of the new galactic order. The Centauri Alliance has formally requested membership, she reported. That makes 2,963 member species in the new alliance. And how many have requested independence or isolation? Chen asked. 47. All requests have been honored with appropriate protective agreements. Chen nodded with satisfaction. The new alliance was not about forcing unity, but about providing a framework for cooperation. Species that wanted to remain separate were free to do so, as long as they did not threaten their neighbors. What about the monitoring stations? She asked. All former council surveillance equipment has been removed or repurposed with the consent of the monitored species. The new early warning network is based on voluntary participation and shared information rather than covert observation. The transformation of galactic intelligence gathering had been another crucial change. The old system of secret monitoring and manipulation had been replaced by open communication and voluntary cooperation. Species shared information about threats and opportunities because they chose to, not because they were being watched. As Chen prepared to leave the chamber, she felt the presence of the human collective consciousness flowing through her mind. Billions of connected humans across the galaxy shared their experiences, their knowledge, and their hope for the future. It was a gift that humanity planned to share with other species when they were ready for such profound connection. The quantum communication grid that linked human minds was already being adapted for voluntary use by other species. Several had requested inclusion in the network, seeing the benefits of instant communication and shared consciousness. Others preferred to maintain their individual mental privacy, and that choice was respected. "Admiral," called out a familiar voice. Chen turned to see Chancellor Vexitar approaching, his formal robes replaced by simple civilian clothing. "Former Chancellor," she replied with a slight smile. "How are you adjusting to retirement?" "Better than I expected," he admitted. "I have been working with the Zephyrian Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It is difficult work confronting the mistakes of the past, but it is necessary." The Truth Commissions had been established on dozens of former Council worlds. Instead of seeking revenge against those who had participated in oppression, these bodies focused on understanding what had gone wrong and how to prevent it from happening again. It was a uniquely human approach to justice that emphasized healing over punishment. "The galaxy is changing faster than I thought possible," Vextar continued. 6 months ago, I would have said that such cooperation between species was impossible. Now I see former enemies working together as if they had been allies for centuries." "People want to be good," Chen replied. "They want to build something better for their children. The Council system made that impossible by pitting species against each other in competition for limited resources. Now that resources are shared freely, there is no need for conflict. The human technology of matter conversion and energy manipulation had effectively eliminated scarcity as a driving force in galactic politics. Any species could have whatever materials they needed simply by asking. The old economy based on control and exploitation had been replaced by one based on cooperation and mutual aid.